So, Adam, I saw this question the other day in one of our Facebook groups asking what mixing console is the easiest for volunteers to use? And what's your thought? What's your gut reaction to that type of question when you hear that? Because then people started listing a ton
Yeah.
of consoles. They're like, this console's better, that one. What are your thoughts?
The one that you provide training on is going to be
That
the
one.
easiest. That one.
As simple as that, right? As simple as that.
Yeah. I mean, or another answer could be the one that you prepare.
Yep.
Like, I had an LV1 at my last church, and yeah, some would argue like, oh wow, that could be a pretty complicated console, but I set it up really well, and the fact that it is so customizable, that you can save presets and scenes and pull all that up. Like, I have to know the inner workings of how it works, but a volunteer doesn't. So when I prepare the console well as the technical engineer or as the worship pastor, whoever's in charge of the console preparation, like, I had people that had never mixed before step up to it for the first time during a training session and do a mix. Like, they just pushed up faders because I had the console set up the way it needed to be. So I don't know if there really is one that's easier. Like, oh, is it easier to navigate an SQ6 versus something like the Wing here, or an Avantis, or whatever you have? I don't think any of them are going to be necessarily the easiest to use. Some will be less complicated and have fewer features, but yeah, I think it's whatever you give training to and whatever you allow the volunteers to spend time on to learn.
Yeah. The higher your level of ignorance, the more complex it is for everybody of how to
Yep.
use these tools, right? And I think like so many, I mean, there's obviously, we have training videos and courses on how to use this. There's a lot of great stuff on YouTube. There's the owner's manuals. It is, I don't know why we always have a natural tendency to just not set aside a little bit of time to just learn, right? To that, like the
Yeah.
one minute 1 minute of learning is probably going to save you 1 hour worth of headache and troubleshooting, and it's going to speed up your process to turn around and teach someone how to mix, right? And I think,
Right.
what I'm passionate about doing here with Worship Ministry School and our learning platform. Of course, it's great because team members can log in and they can work through the courses at their own pace. But often we find the best success in a worship ministry environment is when, a worship leader, a tech team leader takes ownership of this process, and they've bought into learning it themselves, so that they can even just quickly in person teach people kind of, okay, here's what you need to know to navigate this console. Here's the common, mistakes you can make with it. Because it really is different for, I think, when it comes to volunteers, that word can mean a lot different things to different people. It can mean you do have a volunteer who's completely in charge of the tech ministry, and they have to install and implement everything themselves. Like, we've worked with clients like that. Or a volunteer could be someone who is going to just show up on during rehearsal and on Sundays and push faders. They need to know how to balance things out. They do need to know some basics of signal processing, but they're not the ones to dive into the weeds of how to get this thing up and running. And then that's where I think what you said definitely comes into play, where it's like any console can be very simple for volunteers so long as it's been prepared for them, and that they can show up and know what to do. So for us, that workflow, often when we're leading worship, we take time, even as worship leaders, and because at our church there's no like dedicated tech director, but as a worship leader, spending 5 to 10 minutes setting up the wing for, like, okay, who's going to be singing and what instruments are there. And then what's beautiful with these digital consoles is you can just get rid of all the fluff that you don't need.
Yep. Yeah. And then just ensuring routing, like, I think a great way to do it is to have it so where you don't have to reroute things every single week. Like, for your most common uses, like, oh, you might have some like random thing that, like, someone's playing a random instrument or something. But most of the time, if you're going to have the same type of band, even if you do have those random instruments, like, just saving channels for those. that it's always routed the same way. So you're not rerouting your console every week.
Yeah. So now let's talk a little bit practically, because people are like, okay, this is kind of high level philosophy about making your console easy to use for volunteers. But practically, let's talk about some of the popular options out there, right? I know on this specific thread, a lot of people are like X32. Okay. Yes and no. Like, to me, honestly, because we know the X32 really well, but it's not necessarily that, like, especially in the menus and configuring some more like a routing and stuff, like it's not super intuitive compared to a lot of the newer consoles out there. Like, right. The wing, people are like, oh, the wing's too complicated. But to me, the UI and doing things in that console, yeah, you can do a lot. People might feel overwhelmed by it, but it's a way more intuitive setup, in my opinion, on how to do, processing and routing and all the things, right? We'll get back to the video in a second, but first I wanted to tell you about worshipministryschool.com. Worship Ministry School is our online learning platform created by the team at Churchfront to help you build and grow a thriving worship ministry. You can check out our course library. We have courses on how to implement the latest technology in worship, as well as how to build and lead a worship band, how to grow as a musician, how to stay organized, and how to lead your church spiritually through worship. So if you're interested in joining our program, go to worshipministryschool.com and click this Get Started button today. But an X32, sure. I think you would probably agree, it's like if you're shopping for a brand new console in 2022, I would tend to not go for the X32 unless if it's completely for budgetary reasons and you maybe found a used one that's like super, super cheap. So I don't know. I feel like you're definitely missing out on a lot of the newer features and maybe better sound processing on these newer consoles like the SQ or the Wing. Any other consoles out there that we'd recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I've used the PreSonus one more recently and filmed that module in our Mixing for Worship course, and wasn't super impressed with it. I mean, I would definitely recommend the SQ or the Wing over that, and anything else in that price range. I can't think of anything that would be better for volunteers.
I've heard good things about
TFs.
I've heard good things about these consoles. I've seen one. They're definitely, I think they're getting a little older. I don't know when they first came out with these, and I haven't really spent that much time diving into one, but I think, again, it's pretty simple setup, and I've heard a lot of good things about the Yamaha TF series.
That is, I mean, I guess technically, like, that would be the easiest console for someone to use because you plug an XLR into the back of it and it shows up on fader 1. There's no like rearranging of the faders like, oh, I want my vocal to be on the far right. Well, you have to plug it into channel 16 or 32 then. Okay. And that's just how it works. So, and then their EQs are like, I want more EQ, and you just turn a knob and it like accentuates. If say you have an EQ on there where you've got a shelf that's boosting the high end and you have a cut at 400 hertz, so you use your EQ knob and it's gonna cut that 400 more and it's gonna boost that shelf more. So in that sense, it's like fader and an EQ knob and a gain knob, and that's pretty much it.
Totally. And in that sense, a lot of people are like, oh, that's so volunteer friendly. It's like, yeah, it does give a simple solution. I'll have to hand it to them, because honestly, a lot of like, if you're mixing a vocal, it's like, it sounds too muddy. Okay, cut down the lows, low mids, and boost the highs a little bit, and there you go. It's gonna sound cleaner. Or it's too harsh. So let's do the opposite direction. It does. I like how they streamlined it in a lot of ways, but again, you don't have enough control to diagnose some specific issues there. And then you mentioned the Waves LV1 system here. That was on, let's see, just a couple options here on Sweetwater. I would really love to actually get one of these. So, okay, here's the Wave LV1 32 channel stereo channel, important mixing software. Yep. But you all in like $5-6 grand though, because you gotta get the stage box, you gotta get the server, touchscreen, all that stuff, right?
Yeah, this is just the software.
Yeah, and I like that because it's just like so intuitive. I mean, at this point, most mixing consoles are just hardware digital audio workstations, and I think, that's the direction things keep going. I wouldn't be surprised if in 5 to 10 years, this is really, we're seeing more and more and more of this, is like everybody just got a touch screen and probably even actually just using Waves, because they kind of seem to be ahead of the curve of everyone else developing all the processing and plugins.
Yeah, I think this is the most intuitive software. It's like, you have a channel, like you can see the faders there.
Yep.
And then like on that first channel strip, you see all those blue rectangles. It's like, okay, I want to have a EQ. That's one of the plugins. I want to have vocal tuning. That's one of the plugins. And you just touch it and you start
nice. Okay.
messing with the
So
parameters.
That's your rack, right?
Yeah. And then
Okay.
on the right side, like the modes over there, that's where it's like, okay, I want to mix in-ears. So you touch one of those and you start adjusting the monitor mixes. Like you go into flip to fader mode. So I mean, to me, this is the most intuitive because they're able to design it from scratch. Like all they have is a screen, so they can do whatever they want with that screen.
Yep. Love it. So yeah, the only other console I think we commonly recommend would be the Avantis, but that's like kind of higher budget level, right? You're looking, this is 2 to 3 times more a lot of these other consoles we just talked about. And to be clear, Wing by Behringer, SQ series 5, 6, or 7 by Allen and Heath, and then you saw the Waves solution, the Avantis. This is like, you definitely can pay more for a console, but this is definitely gonna be overkill though for the vast majority of church situations out there, small to mid-sized churches. Maybe you're talking about, you have a venue that holds like 700 or 1,000 plus, and you got a big band. You're trying to have multiple expansion cards. And again, it's funny to answer this question though that we started with at the top of this video. It's like it all comes back to like, do you have someone who like knows how to set up, configure, and kind of maintain the console, and then just make sure you got to set your volunteers up for success, no matter what level they are coming in there. Have good systems and processes in place, because it's one thing you can have a console, but outside of that, do you have patch sheets? Do you have stage diagrams? Do you know where all the things are plugged in and labeled? Like that stuff is also very, very important. It applies to no matter what piece of hardware that you're using.
Yeah. And maybe the question isn't the best question either, because it kind of assumes that I want the easy way out,
Yep. Yeah. The thing is, it's like, I don't know. It's just like when I think about, especially what we've done at South Fellowship in the past year, it's, in every church situation I've been at where it works well is like us as the worship leader, tech director, whatever you want to call it, staff, or if you're volunteer, like someone's going to take the ownership to set up the system and make it happen. And then everybody else, it's kind of plug and play, and you can train people on roles in very short amount of time, and you'll be set to go. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure you check out the links down below this video, specifically our worship ministry toolkit, which is going to give you our recommendations to all of our favorite gear and software for modern worship ministry. Hit that thumbs up button, share this video with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.